Here's one over here. Larry's going to grill us.
Just would like to hear your comments on excess flow valves and what Questar does in regard to those.
Well, we follow regulations on excess flow valve.
Why don't you tell people what an excess flow valve is?
I was just going to do that. An excess flow valve is a device that sits near our service tee. There's a T fitting that sits on the main that goes down your main street, and then a service tees off that and goes to your home and delivers gas at your meter. And near that service tee, there is a valve device that is now being installed on service lines. And what that means is if there's a break in your line and suddenly you pressure the line depressurizes because a lot of gas is moving through it very quickly, that valve shuts off and prevents more gas from flowing. Okay, that just very simply. Does that make sense to everybody? And those were very controversial because if you had substantial changes in gas usage, that could have triggered that valve going off. And for most of us in our homes, that really isn't an issue. Your furnace kicking on or kicking off isn't going to trigger that valve. There's some controversy nationally about those valves because right now to put one on a strip mall, you get a place where what would tend to happen is somebody has a pizza oven. And when that kicks on and kicks off, that could sometimes trigger those types of valves. Okay, I mean I'm kind of simplifying because the engineering explanation is kind of long, but the regulations are such is that we are installing those excess flow valves in residential situations and certain commercial situations. New regulations are going to come out that are going to mandate further installations of excess flow valves. We anticipate that will occur. I think what we hope is that right now for some of the larger applications, there are no excess flow valves available in the marketplace. We hope that when these regulations are mandated and they tell us we have to have them, that the private sector will respond and get us flow valves that will work in some of those broader light commercial applications. But yes, we do install excess flow valves here. It's a significant issue, and like I say, it's something that if you follow the industry, you will hear more about as PHMSA goes forward and add some additional regulation on additional applications for flow valves. I mean, do you have a better sense? Can you augment what I just said more than that?
No, it's basically an NTSB recommendation.
Yeah.
It's been around for years. And there's pros and cons.
Yeah.
Just what you're saying. Sometimes you can have it automatically shut off in cold weather. You get a lot of cold weather.
And you get a pull on it. Yeah.
You get a pull, and then there's other places. I mean, it is a good thing to have if you have earthquakes or something. Mm-hmm. It's shut down.
It shuts down, so people don't have to worry about shutting off their gas meter in that circumstance. So there are pros and cons, but I think we're going to see them come more and more a part of gas installation.
All right. Any other questions?
Vaughn, this one's for you. What is involved in an interference survey?
Let me re-ask the question like I promised. The question was, what is involved with a interference survey?
What happens there is we get together with other operators of underground utilities or potential sources of stray current, and we arrange to interrupt everybody's rectifiers, and then we do the close interval surveys for a distance up and down from the crossings, and look to figure out if one system is interfering with or taking current from another system, a situation that can cause corrosion. And if that's happening, then generally what's done is they're bonded together so that there's a metallic connection and you can manage the current flow between them. Or you may need to repair coating or do some other work to make sure that you don't have a situation where there's current coming off of the pipeline going somewhere it shouldn't. that's a place that can corrode.
And those same principles apply to Questar Gas's distribution system too. We have similar methods and then things that are a little bit different for smaller lines that we do to address what we'll call cathodic protection issues, or issues related to stray or small voltage electrical currents moving across our lines.
Right.
Do many pipelines travel the same route together? So do you have say, well, I would say Chevron pipeline and Rocky Mountain or Questar in the same area? Or, I mean, I just see that as a more potential danger if it does happen.
Right, so I think the question was, how often do you kind of share right-of-ways, easements, or how close together are you?
In the Salt Lake Valley, well, with Chevron, I'd have to think about Chevron. I've got a property person here. I don't think we share much easement with Chevron. Do you guys?
We do at Red Butte.
Just at Red Butte, okay.
We do at North Salt Lake.
Okay. We tend to run largely perpendicular to Kern, and we actually take gas off Kern at 2 locations, one on 35th South in West Valley and one in Riverton. So we don't share much close proximity right of way with Kern, and then I think you'd find it isolated. But I think if you go out into the into the rural areas, you'd find on Questar Pipeline, we have a pipeline like Kern. We do share rights, or we have pipelines in close proximity to other large pipelines.
I think it's important to point out that corridors are developed for common use for utilities, whether it be electrical or pipeline, and the government agencies not only encourage but sometimes force you to use a common corridor.
And I might, for local utility usage, that becomes a challenge because as more planned unit development communities are coming in with smaller front yards, smaller place, so the homes are right up with not much setback, that the utility corridors become so small, and there are requirements in those that gas, electricity, water, and telecom are all in that same corridor underground. There isn't room for us to all be there in a lot of places. So as municipalities are doing the planning and putting in the planned unit developments in smaller homes on smaller lots, that there needs to still be room for local utilities to be able to go in those circumstances. That's a big deal, because if we can't do that, we end up either damaging each other's lines, or we end up having to do something drastically different that costs a lot more money to get those to make those corridors work. That's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. That is a real challenge for us right now in the Valley as communities are moving towards that.
And one of the questions, kind of a follow-up to that one that any of you are welcome to answer, that we got last week at one of the workshops, came in after the workshop, was, is there ever any interference between your pipelines and other utilities, or your pipelines and other things like wells and stuff in the area? I think the specific question was, cathodic protection, can you be causing problems on other utilities or vice versa?
Yeah, and that's really the interference that we were speaking about. It's a definite possibility, and something that needs to be managed regularly and constantly.
And that's what the survey does.
Right.
We have issues not just with other pipelines, but with electric lines, and a lot of other things impact us from that interference. We have a group of people that work on that all day long, trying to make certain that we don't have that kind of interference. But we get it bad from electric lines lately too.
Any other questions? I've got one maybe for Cliff, but anybody's willing to answer. I heard you talk about how the association's going out now and trying to do trainings with local governments on a variety of issues, emergency responders. What's the reception? Are they just happy to see you coming and they can't wait for the training, or is it like pulling teeth to get them to show up and listen to what you have to say?
Well, I can tell you that we've sent out 5,200 invitations in the 2 years that we've been an association. Of those 5,200 invitations, we've received 800 RSVPs. So the answer to your question is, the folks that are coming, feedback we're getting is they're enjoying the training, they're getting something from it, but we're still not getting a huge turnout for our meetings. We held a meeting January 17th in Salt Lake. We sent out 667 RSVP or invitations. We received 29 RSVPs.
And what kind of people do those invitations go to?
all emergency responders, fire departments, law enforcement, EMTs, public officials, hospitals. And we're getting better. It's getting better every year, but we're still not where we want to be.
Right. Is it harder in rural areas versus urban areas?
It's actually better in rural areas.
All right. Oh, Larry wants to chime in on that one.
Personal to me because as I mentioned, I'm leading that aspect of the INGA IMCI effort. And what the emergency responders tell us is that, in kind of defense of them, and I guess there's some here today, their challenge is that they have so many potential threats that they have to be concerned about. So if they give our pipeline an audience, they have to give another pipeline an audience, and another pipeline, and then a tanker truck outfit, and some other facility that's manufacturing something that's a threat. So they have so many people coming to their door to talk to them that they get overwhelmed. Now the thing that you're doing that's so powerful is that you're representing a group of pipelines, and so it's more like a one-stop shopping. You can come in and represent a group of pipelines. And they've even told us in these emergency responder workshops that we've had last year, is as much as we can combine with others, like we had one in Houston where we had the LDCs, we had the liquids pipelines, we had the gas transmission, and we had tanker trucks. We had those 4 industries there. And then we had a big turnout from emergency responders as a result, because they could come and address all 4 industries. So, but that is a problem, and we are working actually with PHMSA. Tim Butters is leading an effort. We're working real closely with them to maybe develop a common platform across the country, not to substitute what you're doing, but probably to enhance what you're doing, and try to get this where firefighters can get the training they need, and whether they're a group of professional firefighters or a group of volunteer firefighters, both have different needs, and so that's underway as well.
All right.
Just for a little clarification, when we go around and put these trainings on, it's not simply just me or one of the operators putting that training on. Whichever county that we're operating in, all of the operators in our association that are operating in that county are present. And so it's their chance to meet with all of the operators that are there.
Right. So another question back there.
In my experience, there's been some situations where you call for blue stake and they don't show up, for several days. You've got a project you're trying to work on, call back, and I've been told that if they don't show up, you just go ahead and dig, and the utility is responsible for any damage in that situation. But when you know there's underground power and other stuff in there, what's really the best practice for that kind of situation?
We have the head of Utah Blue Stakes here. Maybe he ought to answer.
Yeah, actually, I think if you're gonna stay for the rest of the afternoon, I'd like you to hold that question, because the president of Utah Blue Stakes is going to talk about that, and we have Bob Kipp, who's the national president of Common Ground Alliance, and they're going to get into that exact issue, because that's an issue all over the country.
But I would just state something as utility representative. I mean, just going ahead and digging is a dangerous thing to do. And whether you think it's going to be our fault or another utility's fault or anybody else's fault, you're going to get sued too. And I think I recognize your name, and I know you know that. But I just don't think you take that risk as a responsible owner or contractor or operator. I don't think you dig until you get those marks there. And if there's problems, I know Gary will talk about that, but I don't think you can take that risk in the world anymore today. I would just, and I apologize, but we had a leak down in front of the Energy Solutions Arena the other night. And I sent my guys out there, and we have a big fancy new back truck, and we started moving dirt off that. And when we got down, we had 21 different pipes underground. And whether you break a gas line or an electric line, you cut through fiber. And oh my word, you're going to have a lawsuit to beat the band. And so, you know, it's just a scary thing out there. There is so much infrastructure in the ground you don't know about. And also, just harm yourself, there's more and more buried electric. It's just everywhere, and it's coming in. And your operator, your guy on the backhoe, risks his life now if he doesn't know where those marks are. And so I just reiterate that everybody's just got to be super careful. You know, lose a day and fight about that, you know, of construction time, but don't dig without those marks, because you put your employees or your contractor at risk when you do that. Well, we'll let those guys talk about it. They have a protocol.
Right. It's a bigger issue in some other states. I think here you have some sort of positive response where you're supposed to get a call one way or another. In other states, that's not the truth, and so it's even more difficult. Any last questions for these folks? Last question.
I'm just glad you changed the color of your pipe from the color of a tree root, if you don't.
Well, that is an industry standard. That is an industry standard. The tree root pipe is not good, great pipe. You know, we want to get that out of the ground.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. I wouldn't even call it a break. We're going to just transition to the next group. You may have time to go out and get a cup of water if you want, but we're going to start as soon as we get the next group up here.